Mhm.
As I said, my name is Ayesha, and I'm a student from the Department of Computer Science in MacEwan University. We're
Mhm.
located in Canada. This is
Mm.
my second bachelor, and hopefully I hope to do more, but we'll see. And I am here with uh Fuz Fuzheng and Islam, and
Mhm.
they will do their introduction. So today we're interviewing you. So did I start again? I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm talking to you and I feel like there needs to be something this. But yeah, so today we're going to be interviewing Professor Maria Mercedes Rodrigo. We who's an expertise whose expertise in the use of artificial intelligence for educational technology has been making a positive impact in the educational system of many underrepresented countries. So thank you for taking the time to meet with us. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing okay. Thank you. And what time is it? Well, what time is it where you are? I took,
It's
yeah.
it's 10 p.m. here, which is why the lighting is a bit dark. So I
Okay.
think it's different for everyone.
Yes,
Yeah.
Japan's time zone is similar with your
To the
professors.
right.
Yes, my yes, afternoon.
And Islam, what time is it in Egypt?
Yeah, in Egypt it's 6 a.m.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, different times all over.
Different time zones. Okay.
Yes.
Mhm.
So
All right. How would you like to start?
um okay, I'm going to talk about I watched a YouTube video and I was actually looking at your research and one of your experiments with Dr. Baker from the University of Pennsylvania. And
Mhm.
you were focusing on providing and studying the Filipino students'
Mhm.
mathematical abilities through the use of
Mhm.
artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm going to start off with. So I know you
Mhm.
discussed in the interview that most of the data out there comes
Mhm.
from weird countries and is
Mhm.
biased by weird countries. Would you mind explaining
Oh, okay.
what
So,
weird countries are and why
okay.
that data is biased?
Okay. WEIRD is an acronym that stands for Western, Educated, Industrialized, Rich, and Developed. And most of the studies that have to do with artificial intelligence in education come from these countries. And we're referring here to North America, Europe, some parts of Asia like Taiwan and Japan. So very, although those countries don't count as Western, but they're highly industrialized, they're very rich, they're very technology driven and oriented. So because of this capability, especially if you look at countries like Singapore, they're very equipped to do this kind of research and this kind of to develop innovations which they can use in their classes. And so whatever data that we have regarding how students interact with computer-based educational systems, it will tend to come from these countries. It's not because people are evil and don't want and deliberately want to exclude countries like mine. It's just really circumstances. In order for you to use artificial intelligence applications in your classes, you need to have an ecosystem where you have computers, you have connectivity, you need teachers who are trained, you need curriculum, etc. If you don't have those, it's really quite difficult, if not impossible, to use these types of innovations. And therefore, as a natural consequence, you do end up with data from the countries that have the ecosystem. And that's why that speaks to the point that you were trying to refer to, which was this is why the data is biased. But at the same time, I don't want the word bias is so negative, and it is understandably so, but it's not deliberate. I mean, nobody intends it to be so. It's just the way it is.
It's just the resources.
Yeah, it's just the resources,
Right. Can you also explain more on the use of different educational technologies to promote learning and development in the many underrepresented countries? Like specifically, you talked about the enhancement of mathematical abilities through technology and AI.
What we tried doing, specifically with Dr. Baker, was to run an application which was called Scooter the Tutor. Scooter was the name of an animated dog that he had in the software. What Scooter did was Scooter taught you how to create and interpret scatter plots, and that was the one and only thing that Scooter did. And so we used Scooter the Tutor with, I think it was 160 students. I could be wrong. And then we tried to test their ability to create and interpret scatter plots after they were done. And then aside from that, we also tried different another application called A+6, which was a mathematics, sort of arithmetic all the way up to algebra tutor, which was developed at the University of Grenoble in France. And that we tried out with, I think it was about 150 students. So yeah, those are examples. And what I liked about both of them, both Scooter and A+6, was that they provided lots of feedback for the users, for the students. And that sort of feedback is really very helpful, especially when you're learning something that something relatively new or something that you don't have a lot of skill doing. You're trying to develop that fluency. You need coaching, and you need somebody to tell you, okay, this isn't right. You should try doing this. Just somebody to scaffold the experience. That's why the intelligent tutors are good, because they don't just tell you right or wrong. They tell you, they give you suggestions about what you might do to improve your performance.
It's like having a teacher without having a teacher there.
True.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay, so I also know that there's many issues surrounding the use of artificial intelligence in education. Just, can you briefly explain some of these issues for our readers?
I mentioned that in order for you to use artificial intelligence, you need to have the right environment. And in developing countries like mine, those environments are very difficult to come by. I mean, you have to be in a very well-resourced school to have internet access, computers, etc. If you go to the sort of the average public school, they don't have enough computers, and the teachers always complain about connectivity. If you don't have those resources available to you, then you won't really be able to take advantage of these many. I mean, even things like ChatGPT, these applications are web-based. So if you don't have connectivity, then you can't really use them. And then, but there are other issues as well. Data bias is one thing. If the models that are used to inform the coaching of that the tutors provide are built on data. And if the data comes from a very Western country, then the type of coaching that it will provide will probably be appropriate for students from that country, but it might not be appropriate for students from different cultures. And we see that a little with things like, we see that, for example, help-seeking behaviors tend to be different from country to country. Some cultures are very collaborative, and other cultures are very independent. You see that in in things like gaming the system. Gaming the system refers to trying to progress through the work without, trying to complete an academic task without actually doing the work. So this is where you look directly at an answer key, or you just keep abusing the hint feature until you get to the bottom up answer, or you systematically guess. You're not actually learning, you're just barreling through. In the Philippines, there's not a lot of what's called off-task behavior, but there is a lot of gaming the system. And our hypothesis was that maybe because gaming the system looks like you're working, versus off-task behavior is very deliberately kind of in your face, not working, maybe sleeping or chatting with your seatmate about something totally unrelated. And so if you want to intervene when a student is gaming the system, there might be different methods for the intervention. If the methods are trained on Western data, then the interventions will be Western, or will appeal to a Western-oriented student. But if you bring them to a Filipino classroom, they might not work as well. So they might not hurt, but they might not work as well. So these kinds of things are some of the issues that come into play. There are others, but
there's lots, but yes, that's
Yeah.
great. Thank you. I think Dr. Fuzheng has some questions for you.
Hi. Hello, Professor.
Hello.
I'm Fuzheng ZHAO. Artificial technology is very popular, as you said, and indeed, this it could help students to improve their learning performance, and maybe we can use this technology to collect students' data and analyze it. Maybe we can make a very useful learning strategy based on the analyzed result. But I want to know, there are a lot of subjects, math and so on. And I would like to ask you, Professor, and why did your research team choose the math subject as the research the object, and or not rather than or not the subject? And in the Philippines, maybe your research team chose the research subject based on the Philippines the learning environment. And the first question is about, why did your research team choose mathematics as the research subject? Thank you.
All right, thank you. There were a couple of reasons. The first reason is that was convenience, because in order for you to collect data, the math or the software that the students use needs to be instrumented, meaning it has a data collection function. Because if you use ordinary, I mean, if you let's say go on the internet and look for arithmetic drills, maybe the developers are collecting information in the background, but it won't be accessible to you. So we needed software that could collect data about student behaviors with the software, and we needed to have access to it. That's why and it was Scooter the Tutor and A+6 that had those capabilities built in. So when we ran Scooter the Tutor and the student finished, there was a log that we could then collect and then analyze later on. The same is true for A+6. Every time the student completed a problem, there was a log that you could collect and then analyze later on. And not everybody does that. In fact, I'm sure that you're familiar with many learning management systems. We used them especially during the pandemic. So here in the university where I am, we used Canvas for the university level, and then our grade school and high school used Google Classroom. Canvas actually allows you to collect data about how students and faculty use the system, but Google Classroom does not. And so, if your goal is to analyze the data, you need something that has the data collection capability. The second reason why we're very interested in math and other STEM subjects, actually the more recent work has been with science, is because the Philippines actually scored very poorly in the standardized tests for achievement. I'm referring here to the TIMSS and the PISA. And there's one more from Southeast Asia. I think it's called the SEAPLM. And I'm sorry, I forgot what the acronym stands for. But essentially, the Philippines scored, I think, the lowest, if not second to the lowest, in all of these tests. If you look at our test results, we're very far below the other OECD countries. So if you compare the average Filipino student with, let's say, the average Japanese student or the average Canadian student or even the average Egyptian student, we're very far below. Even our best students don't even compare to the worst students in Singapore. So, it's that bad. And we need to really develop our skills in the areas of science, math, English, practically all subject areas. It's actually quite frightening from a societal standpoint, and it's also quite sad. And so this is why we are trying to do what we can to help in this area. Excuse me.
Okay, and I noticed that Professor, you just mentioned ChatGPT is a popular application when working out many the learning problems. Yes, I want to know that. And in the Philippines, what's the challenge? What's the challenge when we applying ChatGPT and other the artificial technology in the learning practice? What's the challenge? And maybe we consider taking the Philippines as an example for the considering.
Right. I think the challenge, well, first of all, is access. Very few people have access because very few people have the right devices and the right internet connections. And so it's a problem of equity in many ways. The people who have access will do better and better, and the people with very limited access will do worse and worse. So the gap between those who the digital divide essentially will get wider, and it will be defined by who has access and who does not. Aside from that, for the people who do have access, it's a question also of correct use and proper use. There are many people who still believe that ChatGPT is very accurate, and it's getting better and better. That's true, but there's a tendency for people to just accept whatever it says without being critical, and that sort of critical thinking is something again that people have to learn. And then after that, there's very few, even teachers, very few teachers also, they don't know what proper use looks like. So if they themselves don't know what it looks like, then it's hard to teach that now to students. And then, I mean, we can talk about plagiarism, but it's a different, I think goes without saying. So those are some of the issues.
Okay, and thank you very much, Professor. Yes, I read I read some paper of your professor, right? And I mentioned that actually, and compared with the developed country like the Canada and Japan, and maybe there are a lot of common and different the points when applying the advanced technology into the learning practice. And I would like to know, and what's the most different between the Philippines, maybe the undevelopment country, and the like Japan, Canada, the developed the country. What's the different? Maybe the challenge and between the developed country and undeveloped country.
I think it's resources really, because I was reading a statistic just recently that said something like the do you mind? I'm going to look for the file because I don't want to give you the wrong information. Hold on. Sorry. I will look. Give me a couple of seconds. I will look for my resource.
It's fine. Take your time.
Yeah, because okay. All right. In very developed countries, you spend a lot on education per child. So the number that I see here is, let me see. Okay, in OECD countries, the governments spend about $75,000 US on students from the time they're 6 years old to the time they're 15. So over a course of 9 or 10 years, the students get an investment of $75,000. That translates to teachers, textbooks, anything else that goes into the learning process. In the Philippines, over the same time period, the Philippine government only spends $11,000 per student. That's 7 times less. It's 1/7 of what other countries spend, and that has consequences. Even let's say with textbooks, our students don't get a complete set of textbooks, and textbooks are, you might say, the simplest, most basic educational technology. And yet, and they're proven, they work. We know that they work. But if our students don't have them, then they have no chance to really work. So I think that's the huge difference. It's really one of resources, and then of course that's a complicated it's a complicated situation, right? Because you can say that it's because of poverty, you can say it's because of corruption, you can say it's because of many other factors, like the inefficiency of supply chains and so on. There are many sort of reasons behind that, but that's the kind of that's just an indicator of what the big difference is.
Yes, charity is very popular, but for the undeveloped country, maybe it's the biggest challenge from the needed money. If you want to plan the charity into the learning environment, you need plant a lot of money to buy the equipment. Maybe yes, we can get a lot of the benefit from charity application, but in the Philippines, and maybe the money is the most challenge. Yes. Thank you for your professor. Yes,
thank you.
Yes.
I think it's Islam's turn for questions.
Yes, I would like to ask about your current research. Can you please explain what you are focusing on at this time, and this impact that it will have on this field of AI?
Yeah, there are a few things that we're doing now, like we've just set up a laboratory that does development in virtual and augmented reality. And so we have a team that's working with a museum to try to create an experience, a virtual reality experience for that museum. And we're hoping that in terms of impact, it's really intended to try to build the ability of technical people here in the Philippines to develop these types of applications. Another project that we're working on is we've done some work in eye tracking, and we have we performed an experiment where we asked students to debug computer code while we had an eye tracker following their gaze. And we're trying to analyze the data now. The benefit or the impact that we're hoping is that maybe we can see we can make some recommendations regarding computer science education and how to guide students, because debugging is a very specialized skill in itself. It's different from writing code, but it's a very important skill to have as a student and as a computer science professional. The question is, like, how do we better teach debugging? And if we can find out what students are doing wrong, whether maybe there are methods of reading through code that are more efficient or less efficient, we can teach the more efficient methods. Then probably the latest project that we have is something called experience sampling. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this already. Experience sampling refers to the collection of data from students or from participants using an app. So you usually have an app that's installed on your phone, and you receive a notification once a day at a random time asking you to record how happy you are, how sad you are, how angry you are, how frustrated or so on. So it asks you about essentially how you're feeling. And so we did one data collection, one run, if you will, and we've analyzed some data. So the impact that we're hoping to have is to develop a way to monitor the emotional lives of our students, and then to use this information to set up more psychosocial support. Because as you know, depression, anxiety, etc. are major concerns among our students now, I think in all countries. And so we're trying to find a way to monitor this and then to provide the support services needed.
Yes. How do you plan to cooperate with local stakeholders, government organizations in underdeveloped countries to ensure the successful implementation for this technology?
Right. Well, for our we do have linkages with the Department of Education, which is the Philippine government's arm for monitoring. For providing education to the public school children. And we have worked with them on deployments of all, let's say, this math software and the science software that we've used. It's difficult to really sort of have an impact because you are confronted with these realities, like they don't have enough computers, they don't have internet access, they don't have, the teachers aren't trained, and so on. We're trying, meaning we try to provide the training, we try to provide the support. We have, we go into their classrooms, we coach them about how to, we install the software for them, etc. We try to do all these things. It might not be enough, but that's we're doing sort of what we can.
Yes. Can you discuss any potential ethical considerations that raise when introduce education technology in undeveloped countries?
Yes, ethical issues. You need to get informed consent. whenever you perform any kind of intervention with public school children, well, with any human participant. But when you consider that our school children score so poorly in language comprehension, you give them an informed consent form, even if you explain it, you're not really sure how much of it they understand. So that's an ethical issue because now, granted, the things that we do, the applications that we ask them to use, are really quite benign. They're not harmful. They're math, right? They're math and science. So there's nothing in them that's sensitive content. There's nothing about, let's say, religion or sex or politics or anything like that. So these are all very, very sort of safe applications. But you still have to kind of wonder, like, how much of the informed consent do people really understand? And if they don't understand it, can they really give informed consent? Because, you know, they don't. And then, so that's one. But the second thing is things like, it's very easy to get access to the public school system here if you want to perform some kind of study. It's actually very easy to get permission from the principal, and that it can be open to abuse, especially if you have a foreigner with you. If you have, okay, so you mentioned Dr. Baker. If you've seen a picture of Dr. Baker, he is a classic American Caucasian male. So if I walk him into a Filipino classroom, there's a kind of, well, the way they put it, the way these American friends of mine put it is, it's white privilege. You know, they walk in and they immediately, people are so much nicer to them just because they are foreigners. So that's that kind of deference to international people, it can be abused, and that's so you kind of have to safeguard against that. And then when you're collaborating with people from different parts of the world, there's a real difference in what grant money can buy. So if you have, let's say, a $10,000 grant in Canada, that's not even going to get you an RA for a year, right? Or even in Japan, $10,000 is not going to buy very much time from students. But if you have $10,000 here in the Philippines, you can hire somebody full time for 6 months or whatever. It's it's actually so I was in that situation a few years ago where we had a partner in another country. I'm not going to name it. It's a Western country, and they got as much money as we did. So there was like two pieces of the grant. There was a piece that was with them, and there was a piece that was with us. And in terms of dollar value, the dollar value was exactly the same. But for them, all it could pay for was, for 2 people, 5 hours a week. That's all it could pay for. But for us, I was able to hire like 4 people full time for 2 years. I mean, it's like that. So there's an asymmetry that occurs, and again, that has implications on how much pressure there is on one party to deliver, and how little pressure there is from another party to deliver. So for us, there on our side, there was tremendous pressure to produce publications, to work with the schools, etc., etc. But for the counterparts abroad, it's practically just I'll give it 1 hour a day, think about this a little bit, make a few comments, and that's enough. And it wasn't, it didn't, it was very difficult, actually. We ended up doing most of the work. So, these are, these are some of the problems I think that you encounter.
Finally, what about your future work in this technology and how to use it with with undeveloped countries?
Future work. We're right now the focus is on the studies that I had told you about, the experience sampling study, the eye tracking study, and the virtual reality. I think that it's always a challenge for me to look forward more than a year or so. I wish I could tell you I had some grand vision for my research, but I actually don't, because I'm looking just up to sort of the end of these projects, and then usually they give birth to more research questions and more interesting things to do. But it's hard for me to anticipate at this point, like what those things are. The virtual reality project has maybe 1.5 years to go in its grant cycle. The eye tracking and the experience sampling study may have maybe a year more. So, for the next year and a half, I will have stuff to do. And then, we'll see from there.
Yes. This is for undergraduate student and graduate student, or only for?
Undergraduate students, graduate students. I have a postdoc who's working with me as well.
Yes. Thank you, Doctor, for taking this time to interview with us, and it is very interesting to learn about your previous and current research. I think the readers are going to be excited about these topics. Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you all. It was very nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for coming. It was
Thank you.
great